Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I recently watched the Elvis movie that just released into the theaters, and I enjoyed it. I definitely did enjoy it. It's the first of the Bohemian Rhapsody, Elton John movies, the musical biopics of recent years that I've seen, and it was definitely an interesting story that I was definitely immersed in properly and enjoyed. It's not necessarily the genre that I prefer, so a lot of my criticism here will be subjective, but overall, it was very effective at telling the story it wanted to and accomplished what it set out to do. So, from that perspective at least, I can't give it anything less than praise because it did exactly what it wanted to. Some issues with it, more subjective, like I said. There were things about it that were inconsistent that I had a bit of an issue with. Like the art style for it came and went. And whenever the art style was involved, I was immersed. From the comic book things it did to some of the shots and techniques they used while he was singing. But when he wasn't singing or doing anything, it became quite bland artistically. I did enjoy the style when it was used, it just wasn't used enough. And I didn't know the story of Elvis thoroughly, so it was very interesting to kind of see how it happened, how it played out, how he was taken advantage of by the Colonel. Very interested to see how all that played out. This movie did a really good job at incorporating Elvis's music into the soundtrack from a thematic sense. Enjoyed a lot of the musical takes, but inversely, it also randomly featured modern day music, and I think that's going to be my biggest criticism of the film. We don't need random current day songs in an Elvis Presley movie. That seems ridiculous to me. We don't need Cardi B's ridiculous singing as Elvis is walking down the street. That's just not something that we need. Of course, you can't have Elvis in every single track in the movie necessarily, but at least have it era relevant or blues or something genre relevant. Cardi B just was so out of place. It stuck out like a sore thumb and just immediately ripped me out of the movie. And there was more than just Cardi B, but it was just why? Why do we need modern music? It immediately dates the film, and it was completely unnecessary in every sense of the word. Tom Hanks has been complicated the last few years when it comes to his personal life, the things he says online, just he's been up to some weird shit, but he's still an incredible actor. He fully became the character of the Colonel and portrayed him very effectively, and I could understand where he was coming from, what he was doing, and how he was taking advantage of Elvis. He was a very interesting character that, had a very unique style to it, and that's something that I have to praise about the guy who played Elvis as well. They were both character actors, and they became their characters, and it's something you don't see a lot in Hollywood these days. Most people just play themselves. Not a lot of them can even do fake voices or fake accents these days to really sell it. Both of these guys did fake voices that really immersed you in the film and seemed historically accurate, at least to my limited knowledge, of course. The best thing about this film was how subtly, and it's the point of the film, but it was introduced subtly, how you could fall prey to manipulation and the allure of fame. And that's the story of Elvis, is just the allure of fame, getting manipulated, and getting lost in himself, getting lost in the music is what killed him and his career. So it's interesting how that was all portrayed, and this movie did it very effectively. And of course I have to mention, and I don't know how they did it, or if it was prosthetics or just hair and makeup, but they really aged up the kid playing Elvis very effectively, so you could see him throughout the years. They did a very good job with that, with the makeup, everything. You could tell he was older, which was very interesting, and I had to praise that because it was a very neat piece of makeup that they did that really showed him through the decades very effectively. Now, there are a few real world things that were at the heart of this movie that I think were done very well. The civil rights movement was peppered into the perfect amount, really showing where Elvis came from, and it made so much sense why he cared so much about the civil rights movement, and that whole deal was very heartwarming. It reminded me of how movies like Glory Road or Remember the Titans address civil rights issues, and this movie did very well similar to that I really, really enjoyed. And overall, especially in the first quarter of the movie, maybe the first half, the overall message was anti-censorship, is that art should be above current day qualms or anything like that. And I think that's something that we need to remember again these days, and is very applicable to our today's day and age, because so much of the world, so much of social media and everything like that is trying to censor art and homogenize it. And I think that's an important message, is that we need to stop censorship, because it's happening everywhere. When someone's opinions can get them canceled online, when you're only allowed to do certain things in movies, if there are rules how you portray certain characters in movies, it's censorship, just in a different way than it was back in the 60s when Elvis was facing the backlash to censorship. And I think it's just important today as it was then for people to stand up to censorship and really be true to the artistic spirit and have some artistic integrity, which is difficult, I understand. But we need to stand up to cancel culture because they even said it in the movie that they were trying to cancel Elvis. That things we're facing today are the same things he was facing, just slightly changed the definitions and what is allowed to be censored and what isn't has changed, but the idea of cancellation is still very much present. I kind of like that little through line through it. I doubt the filmmakers were really thinking about. I mean, Tom Hanks seems to be all for cancellation, so I doubt they thought about it that much. But it was still a relevant piece of filmmaking, and that's how you do relevant. Not in today's Hollywood normally how they do relevant, but this movie did relevant very well, at least in that sense. Overall, I did enjoy the movie. It wasn't something that I'm ever going to watch again. I'd probably give it a 6.5, 7 out of 10, mainly because of that music. The music drove me crazy. And, the acting was phenomenal. The script was just a little bland sometimes, and it was more focusing on montages than actually telling stories. So if it weren't for the actors, I feel like I wouldn't have connected with any of these characters. So it's really the script that's getting me to dock several of those points down to a 6.5 or 7. But I still recommend it for anyone who's interested in the story of Elvis or loves Elvis. I think it definitely does justice to all of that beautifully. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.